So that is really the danger point. That is where you have the risk of you being able to take these objects that are 100% man-made and, for example, this boomerang flying object seen through around the Hudson Valley, I believe this one. And the Hudson Valley events and the reported up and down, I think it was 88, something like that. And people got right up underneath it. Look what's underneath. Can you see that? Little tubes and structures and grids and what have you. That's not extraterrestrial. That's man-made. Probably out of the Boeing Phantom Works out of Seattle. And they were just seeing what the public would do. So people were stopped on the freeway reporting it. Tens of thousands of people saw these. Silent. A little bit of a humming sound, like a transformer. 100% man-made. 100% fooled everyone looking at it. Thought it was E.T. This is what I'm saying. The false flags already happened. But they've been beta testing the system with these kinds of events. Another one that was reported are the big flying triangles, 200-300 feet across. Remember these? Belgium, other places. Look underneath. So these have been reported, and they have a grid structure, very manufactured, very man-made. Silent, except for a little bit of a humming sound when you're close. Electromagnetogravitics, floats along. Now, here's another layer of confusion that I didn't get a chance to share this with Mr. Schratt. There are extraterrestrial objects that look like and approximate the man-made ones. Now, you want to get a little more confused. Consider that if there's an extraterrestrial event that happens, they will then put up a man-made one, and they'll hoax a man-made event piggybacking on an extraterrestrial one, just to really confuse the picture. And that's happened many, many times. And there's a plethora of these that are very strange looking. This is another one. You see the structure? It's reported in a case. Now, Mr. Schratt has collected the best eyewitness documents of these at close range from people and then done models and drawings and what have you, and they're excellent. And these are all man-made. Now, to anyone who would casually see this, and then objects that were very similar to what was seen in the Phoenix Lights, these sort of objects. You know, a fraction of a mile across. Also, can be, not always are, can be human man-made ones. If I'm confusing you, I apologize. But I think the nuance of this can't be lost anymore. We can't be simplistic and, frankly, stupid. And that's why when you have these wonderful, renditions that he's done. Here's another one I showed earlier. And this one. And this is a wonderful. You can zoom in on this one because someone got up close enough to this to see the structure under this anti-gravity system. Man-made also. So there's an entire history of aerospace research and development that's now 62 years on, using technologies that are having to do with mass cancellation, anti-gravity. And those have been deployed purposely so that it'll get into the media and thousands of people will see it, and it will either hide an extraterrestrial event and overwhelm it, or it will simply be a way of them testing the system to see what will the people say, what will the media say, how are they going to react, and then they can refine their algorithm, their protocol for how to do the hoax down the road. This is how they refine the false flag over a 60-year period. Now, one of the people who you all have heard of, I'm sure, who was the Lockheed Skunk Works head for years until he passed away, is Ben Rich. And, you know, I have people who are at meetings with him where he confirmed that we had things that could, quote, take E.T. home. And he also acknowledged that every point in space and time is connected to every other one through consciousness, and that telepathy, as it's commonly called, is real, etc. But Ben Rich may not have had all full access up to that level. And in some letters that we have, courtesy of Mr. Schratt, and these are, I just laid eyes on these today. I have a letter, Lockheed Advanced Aeronautics, to a gentleman, Mr. John Andrews. He says, and the first letter that was written to him was, do you think that the UFOs are real, and et cetera, and so on. And he says, in response to your letter, I am a believer. So is Kelly Johnson, who of course, was a U-2 spy plane. With regards to another gentleman's comment, I do not believe any Lockheed person could or would have made that commitment. Rest easy. Anyway, and it's signed Ben Rich, July 8, 1986. And so in this, the letter, he asked for a clarification. And he says, did you mean UFOs as in man-made or extraterrestrial? And Ben Rich, the head of the very famous Lockheed Skunk Works, says, Dear John, this is the July 21st, 1986. Yes, I'm a believer in both categories. I feel everything is possible. Many of our man-made UFOs are unfunded opportunities. He underlined UFO, and unfunded opportunities. In both categories, there are lots of kooks and charlatans, so be careful. Best regards, Ben Rich. Here it is. Explosive. Dispositive. Now, he, again, would not have had a complete all-access pass into every compartment, extraterrestrial and man-made, because the intelligence officer that we have recently interviewed confirmed that the area at Nellis Air Force Base that dealt with man-made advanced UFO type anti-gravity was completely separate from and hermetically sealed from the extraterrestrial facility underground that was run by people, not ETs, but that had the ET craft they were studying. We've also had it confirmed that the very famous Cash Landrum case, how many people have heard of this? In the early 80s, and there was a craft outside Houston that had a core breach and was spewing radioactive material and injured and killed a couple of women. And looked like a saucer, and it was flying, and they had to call in helicopters to assist, and it made a crash landing in a remote area. This Air Force Office of Special Investigations official, on camera, admits that he was the principal investigator that, for the Air Force, put out the cover story that it was a UFO, and he said it was one of ours, but the skin of the craft, the shell, was extraterrestrial. The power plant, which they had not been able to fully figure out, had a hybrid system that had a nuclear power component that had a filtering problem and a core breach and began to spew radioactivity on people. And this is on camera. This is a lieutenant colonel, name, rank, serial number. I'm telling you, this is going to be explosive, this movie, Unacknowledged. So what you need to understand is that the intelligence community is thrilled if the UFO community says, it was a UFO, it was all alien. When in reality, it's not that simple. It's both. Some of it's ET, some of it's man-made. Some of it's both. And the Cash Landrum crash case was both. So this understanding is key. Otherwise, everyone's going to assume anything that we don't understand that zips around is extraterrestrial. Moreover, anything that would come over and do an Independence Day attack, boom, is extraterrestrial, when it isn't. It is not. It is absolutely not. It's all a lie. It's the biggest hoax in human history, and you've got to wake up to this. So, and I think that one of the problems that we have is, and I remember in 1994, that time period, it was a devastating time for me. I was going to quit all this. It's too difficult. A man came to me, he says, yes, you've discovered the truth. But guess what? No one's going to believe you. He says the truth is so much more bizarre than the lie that it hides itself. And he says, for that reason, you will be discredited even though you're speaking the truth. He says, so just be prepared that if you talk about this, you will be discredited. And I said, I understand that, but do you not warn the public of something like this? If we had known that we had hoaxed the Gulf of Tonkin, and could we have avoided Vietnam? If we had known about 9/11 in advance, or the hoaxing of the weapons of mass destruction materials about Iraq, could we have avoided that disaster? This is my dilemma. So, you know, if I speak the truth, I'm discredited and hated. If I don't speak the truth, I carry a heavy, heavy burden. So, you know, I'd rather speak the truth even if people hate it. Now, here's another object that's been seen. Very unusual, very detailed, excellent rendition that Mr. Schrad has done. Man-made, very advanced. I suspect would deceive almost everyone who saw it. And this is the Hudson Valley boomerang shape, probably out of the Boeing Phantom Works. And tens of thousands of people saw this, by the way. The ones who were close enough to it could see actually the structure and the girds and the struts and the infrastructure of the craft. Well, interstellar vehicles don't have that. So here's a little tip. The ET objects are seamless, have no parts like that, and have a completely different quality to them because they are interstellar and transdimensional. Because they go beyond the speed of light and they are manufactured in a way that is completely different. So listen very carefully because I'm going to blow your minds, if I haven't already. And I know this is a lot of information in an hour. But listen carefully. Your life will depend on it. And those folks in Washington and Moscow listening, listen very carefully. Interstellar vehicles do not manufacture the way we do. So like if you're going to make one of these, you're going to dig up the materials, put it through a mold, rivet it together, have plates and struts and parts, right? But it's got a power plant on it that's electromagnetic-gravitic, mass cancellation, it floats, it's silent, looks and sounds like a UFO, and it could be a saucer, it could be any shape. They can make them in any shape. An interstellar vehicle is not manufactured that way. So I don't want to lose everyone with a lot of jargon here, but if you can for a moment, you've heard of 3D printing? Imagine if you did 3D printing, but from another dimension. Think about that for just a minute. So that you, if you had mastered 0-point energy, the base energy field that all matter and energy is fluxing from, all subatomic particles, and you had mastered it in such a way that you could create a resonant frequency in the shape of a spacecraft. And it would then go from that fourth, fifth dimensional energy field into 3D as almost an extrusion mold. Does this make sense? And where it would materialize in that perfect form. It wasn't something that was put together by digging up those minerals, melting them, smelting them, and riveting them together. This is why they do not have those kind of moving parts and seams. They are seamless. Very important data point for those of you who will have a close encounter with a man-made object versus a close encounter with an extraterrestrial object. I'm trying to give you a little tutorial here. And I'll take it one step further.